Hello and welcome back to Brown Acre Farm. I'm Brandy and today we're going to be talking about garden planning. So one of the biggest things you often see with the homesteading lifestyle and embarking on that is starting a garden. Being able to grow our own food, have your food security right in your own backyard or front yard, doesn't really matter where you grow it. Maybe it's your deck, maybe it's a balcony. Having that food security, knowing that you're growing your own food and knowing that you're taking charge of your food supply is kind of one of the biggest pieces of the homesteading lifestyle. It's something my husband and I have also embraced here on our small farm/homestead. So this will be our third year gardening. So we moved our property in 2020. So 2023 will be our third full year with a garden. So I feel like we've gotten a really good handle on what our property handles, what our soil supports well, what grows good here, what we like to eat, what our favorite garden products are. So I'm feeling more confident about our 2023 garden than our other gardens we've done in the past. A garden for us is not necessarily something we're trying to feed ourselves for the whole year or a year-long food supply. It's to supplement what we're eating from the grocery store with homegrown produce that we enjoy. We also just love the process of gardening. There are so many studies out there saying that gardening, the process, is so soothing. It actually lowers depression rates, it makes people happier. There's some things out there saying that it's helping you live longer. And just the process of connecting with nature, connecting with the land, the enjoyment and fulfillment of growing your own food, what's not to like? Okay, maybe weeding is what we don't like, but there are ways around that, and I actually will talk about how we do our best to create a weed-free, low-maintenance garden. So something you've probably heard before on this channel and that I'm really passionate about pushing across to viewers is that we homestead on top of 2 full-time jobs. I work full-time as an attorney, my husband works full-time as well. So gardening or any part of our homestead has to work around that. So we are looking for low maintenance, low investment of time, making sure that things are not going to take an outrageous amount of upkeep in order to produce our food. So we do not like to spend much time weeding. We try to limit how much time we spend watering. We try to limit just the type of plants we're growing, that they aren't super high maintenance, needing touched constantly to stay healthy. So that's some of the why behind how we go about our garden the way that we do. So that is why we choose to garden. We love doing it, and I'm super excited to embark on our 2023 garden season. I think it's going to be the best one yet. Actually, right behind me, you can see there's snow on the ground, but this is our garden space. It's right adjacent to our house, so it's kind of a kitchen garden, very close, very easy to use and go get our produce, which I think is really nice. But we're actually talking about adding a small satellite garden out closer to our barn, so more to come on that. I have my garden journal here, so this is where I keep track of everything for the year. It's actually just a sketchbook I got at Walmart, and I'm adding everything that I need. I chose to do this because it's really customizable. I can do whatever I need to. I found that I don't really follow prompts great, so getting a ready-made garden journal just doesn't really work for me. So this is what I chose. I think it was under $2, super budget friendly, and I just printed out this cute little cover for it to customize it a little bit. So I'm going to talk now about what we are growing this year. So for 2023, I have settled on a handful of different vegetables. I will also be doing flowers, but I'm going to really focus on the vegetables right now. And I factored out exactly how many we need to plant to hopefully feed my husband and I for the majority of the year. I'm not going to hold myself super hard and fast to this because we do still have the luxury of a grocery store and I have no problem with that, but my goal is to get as close to feeding ourselves for a year as we can with these particular vegetables. So first up, 20 tomato plants. We love canning. We like to use the tomatoes more for preserving than fresh eating. I personally actually don't like eating tomatoes as tomatoes. I like them only as sauce or in something else. So my husband will eat some of them fresh, but not a ton. So those are mostly going to be for preserving. So we'll probably do a lot of Roma tomatoes, paste tomatoes, canning tomatoes. Next, we're going to do green beans. This year, I would like to do more pole than bush so that I can grow them vertically and hopefully take up a little less space while still getting a really high yield. So my goal is 20 to 30 pole bush bean plants, And if I have the space, I will still probably put in some bush beans and do possibly 30 to 40 plants. And I know that seems like a ton of plants, but they actually don't take up a ton of room, so it's really not too bad. Carrots have been something I've struggled with, but I have a new process I'm going to do this year. I'm going to be planting them a little deeper in a raised bed, so I'm hoping it's going to work better. My goal is 60 carrot plants. Corn is another thing that has been a little bit of a struggle for us, but this is part of what's going to go in hopefully our new satellite garden down by the barn, and my goal is 30 corn stalks, 30 corn plants. We'll see how that goes. Cucumbers work really well for us. We've had really good success the last couple years, so continuing on that, I'm going to do 8 to 10 cucumber plants for both fresh eating and for preserving as pickles. Potatoes have gone really well for us in the past as well. I'm super excited to do those again. My goal is 20 to 30 potato plants. Probably be a little bit of a mix of a couple different varieties. Last year we did the purple ones. I think they're called Purple Majesty. I loved those. They were so fun. So hopefully some of those next year, and more of the traditional white potatoes as well. Summer squash has done well traditionally here, so I'm going to do 4 plants. Not something we eat super heavily, so I don't, and they take up a lot of space. So I don't want to take up all my garden space with something we don't eat a ton of. So just 4 summer squash plants, and I think we'll still get a good yield on that. Same with winter squash, not something we eat a ton of, something I would like to increase how much we eat though. So my goal is 4 plants. They're relatively high producers, so we'll see how that goes. I just don't, again, want to take up a ton of space with something we might not eat a ton of. A couple new things for me this year. Sweet potatoes we've never grown before, but it's one of my favorite vegetables. I would really like to be able to grow it successfully this year. So my goal is 10 sweet potato plants. Peppers is something else that I've grown once before. They haven't gone fantastic for me, so I'm going to try some brand new varieties and hope that I can increase the success on those. So my goal is 4 pepper plants. Not something we eat a ton of, so not something I need to plant a ton of. Strawberries I have planted, they have done well, but I can never really get the quantity that I'm looking for to preserve into jam or maybe freeze for smoothies. So if I can work it out, I'm going to take one of my raised beds, dedicate it to strawberries, and the goal is 40 plants. So we'll see how that goes. My husband loves rhubarb, so we're going to add that this year, which it is a perennial, so once we plant it, hopefully it's going to stick around for several years and produce for us successfully beyond just 1 year. My goal is 2 rhubarb plants, and we'll see how that goes. That'll be a totally new one to us this year. I want to increase our blueberry plants. I have 2 that I got from a local blueberry grower actually, and they've been really great, so I would like to add 4 more blueberry plants. It's one of our favorite fruits. Pumpkins I grow as much for eating as just I like the look of them, and instead of going to the store and buying pumpkins to decorate in the fall, I can grow my own way cheaper. So 4 pumpkin plants is the goal. I have some really cool heirloom varieties I have some seeds for. I'm super excited about that. So this is the goal. We'll see how it goes. I've charted out my garden plan in my little journal here so that I kind of know what's getting planted where, have an idea of the spacing. I'm not an artist, but it gets the job done. I know what I'm doing, and that's what I need. I needed to be able to plan. I also will touch on flowers real quick. So I don't dedicate a ton of space to flowers, but I do like to have some around both for pollinating and also just because they're beautiful. And some of them also help with keeping away pests like marigolds. So my goal is to line my whole garden with a mix of marigolds, zinnias, and possibly some dahlias and sunflowers. So that when you look at my little garden plan here, I basically have it all around the exterior of the garden to have those flowers. So it'll make a really beautiful border, bring in the pollinators, and also hopefully keep some of the pests away. Mostly that's the marigolds that they keep the pests away, but we'll see if the other stuff helps as well. Then I'll also have just a couple pots, probably with the dahlias, because those I like to grow a little more carefully, dotted throughout the garden just to add some beauty as well. Because you need to enjoy your garden. It should be beautiful. This is hopefully the satellite garden where I'll have flowers, pumpkins, and corn. That'll be down closer to my barn. We'll see if I get that done or not, but I'm hopeful. So our process this year is going to be a little bit different. In the past, I've jumped on the seed starting bandwagon, done all of that, and we've just decided that it doesn't work for our lifestyle. Again, we both work full time. I'm out of the house a lot of hours of the week. keeping up with seeds, hardening them off, it just doesn't fit our lifestyle. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it's absolutely wonderful, but for our particular circumstances, we've just decided that it's not something we want to deal with this year, and we think the return on our investment is just fine to go ahead and buy those at a local nursery. We have a couple wonderful local nurseries that we're going to be purchasing from. So when we have things that we're buying from the local nursery, that's just the things that really need to be started before they're sown into the garden. So primarily tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and summer squash is what we're going to buy as starts at our local nursery. Everything else we're just going to direct sow the seeds. So actually I think I said that wrong. Summer squash, yeah, maybe I wrote it down wrong. So I might be double repeating something. It's fine, nobody's perfect. Starting from seed direct in the garden, so I'll be literally taking the seeds, direct sowing them into the ground of my garden, is going to be zucchini, pumpkin, carrot, potato, green beans, and corn. Then again, the things that I'm going to buy started from the local nursery will be tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and summer squash. Flowers will probably be a mix of both. I'll probably buy some of those at the nursery. I'll also probably start some from seeds. So that's kind of our plan for this year. So we are going to be forgoing seed starting, which seems like I'm breaking some kind of unwritten homesteading law, but sometimes you just have to work what works do what works for you, not what works for everyone else. And that's the decision we came to. We might change our mind in a future year and return to seed starting, but this year it's just not in the cards for us, and that's okay. I'll happily take my dollars to support local greenhouses, local nurseries, and their wonderful vegetable and flower starts. All right, so that's all I have written down. It doesn't really take that much planning to plan a garden. You need to plan what you're growing, you need to plan how you're growing it, and then how you are going to acquire those plants, whether that is by starting them yourself or buying them somewhere. So that's what we've done so far. It's January in Ohio, so, well, it'll probably be February by the time this video actually is posted, but today when I'm filming it, it's still January in Ohio. There is snow on the ground. It's not really garden weather yet. But it's the time for planning, it's the time for dreaming, it's the time for setting goals. So I've mentioned already that one of my goals and intentions with my garden is to be able to hopefully take these vegetables that I'm growing and be able to have those last my husband and I a full year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to accomplish that. Obviously things can happen, your garden can fail, plants can get sicknesses, they can get diseases, they can get pest infestations, and you won't get a yield on those plants, but that's my goal. My other goal is just to enjoy the process. I don't want my garden to be something that stresses me out. I don't want preserving the things in my garden to be something that stresses me out. I want it to be something I enjoy. So part of how I do that is setting up systems in place that make the garden as low maintenance as possible. Again, we work full time. I know I'm saying that a lot, but it's a really important part of why our homestead works the way it does and why we do things the way we do. Something we do in our garden is either everything goes in raised beds or we use a ground cover weed suppressor, so that basically we hardly have to weed all summer, which saves us so much time, so much stress. It just makes the garden a more pleasant thing for us to do because we just don't have time to be constantly weeding the size garden that we plant. I will link the weed cover suppression ground cover stuff that we use in the description box below. It's worked really well. We've had it down for one full season. It is still fully intact. It should be usable for another season or two before we have to replace it. So it was a worthwhile investment. And last year with that down, honestly, we had like no seeds, maybe some no weeds, seeds, weeds, same thing. No weeds. So the only place we had weeds was kind of maybe around the barrier and like the exterior of that ground cover. And, a few weeds make their way through, but it was totally manageable. It made it so much simpler. Something else we do is sometimes set up some either drip tape or, what are the hoses called? Soaker hoses to water the garden for us. And I even sometimes put that on a timer. do that more so either when we have busy weeks coming up or when we're going on vacation throughout the growing season. Otherwise, my husband loves watering. He finds it actually really peaceful. It's an enjoyable part of his day. So he's more than happy to hand water our plants in our garden when we have the time. But when that becomes not feasible, we do go ahead and switch over to some of those less time involved watering tactics like drip tape, or sometimes we use a sprinkler or timers, stuff like that. So there's absolutely no shame if you do not have time to hand water your garden every day. Set up a system to water for you and watch your plants grow. You've got to make this work for you. You can't even, you might see all the things on Instagram where someone has 2 hours to spend in their garden every day, weeding and watering and enjoying it and watching the butterflies, and that's fantastic. I'm so happy for them. I don't have that time, and I'm sure a lot of you don't have that time because I work from 8:30 to 5. I come home, I have to cook dinner, take care of animals, do things like this. I run this content creation business. I also have another side business. We also like to enjoy our life and do things fun. So you don't want the garden to take over your life and have it be something that becomes more harm to your life than enjoyment, because the whole point of the garden should be good homegrown food and something you enjoy doing. So part of my goal is to really hone in on that and figure out how to make the garden be the most enjoyable and productive space that we can. So those are really our goals with the garden. I would say it's a pretty short list, but that's what it's there for. I don't have any hopes for gardening to a point that I could take it to a farmer's market or even have a produce stand. If we have any extra produce, I am happy to share it with friends and family or local food pantries, but in my experience, I've rarely had extra because I try to grow on a scale that's really right-sized for our family, which is just the two of us at this point. So that is my garden plan for 2023, and the highlights of that would be gardening is worthwhile, it can make you happier, and it gets you really amazing homegrown food to put on your table and nourish your body. You don't have to do everything the way you see online. You do not have to start your own seeds to be a good gardener and a good homesteader. You can go buy them at the nursery, and that's fine. You can also direct sow it right into the ground, even if you're in a cooler climate like me in Northwest Ohio. Things will still grow, I promise you. And even if they don't, it's okay. It's a learning experience. You'll do better next year. The garden's never going to be perfect all the time. And make the garden work for you and work for your lifestyle. It should not be a stressor. It should not be something that causes you heartache. It should be something you enjoy and enriches your life. So put systems in place that make that happen for you. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I can't talk. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today and hearing about my garden goals. I would love to hear more about your garden goals and your garden plans in the comments below, particularly if you are someone who works full-time and you're kind of doing this gardening thing with a limited amount of time. I would love to hear how you make that work for you and see if there's anything I can implement into my own garden, because we're always learning and we never know it all. So thank you again for stopping by. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and happy gardening in a few months when all that snow is gone.